Alright, welcome back folks to WrestleRant here today. I am Graham Jason Matthews, and in this episode we're breaking down the 1999 installment of SummerSlam as the road to the biggest blockbuster of this summer. SummerSlam 2015 rages on in just 33 more days, which I will be in attendance for, which I've said a million times here on the channel. But anyway, SummerSlam 99, decent show, not a great show. But typical Attitude Era like show where it was just kind of all over the place. Not to say it was bad. We've definitely had worse SummerSlam shows, 95, prior to this point. But a lot of this stuff was very, like I said, all over the place. Very, very sporadic. Kicking off the show though, for the Intercontinental and European Championships, Jeff Jarrett taking on D'Lo Brown, who was a multi-time champion, who was both, like I said, the Intercontinental and the European champion going into this contest. A good match here, really not too great. I mean, that was kind of the par of the course for the rest of the show, kind of the common theme throughout this entire event. Decent for what it was. Jeff Jarrett emerged victorious with both the belts as both the new Intercontinental and European champion. And I watched this a couple days ago, so my memory may not be serving me correctly, but I believe Mark Henry had something to do with the finish. And I think he turned on D'Lo Brown, that's what it was, setting the stage for their feud that fall. So Jeff Jarrett becoming a two-time champion in the same match. So, okay opener. Nothing great, but it was okay for what it was. Up next, a tag team turmoil matchup to determine the number one contenders to the WWF tag team titles. The tag teams included Edge and Christian. After that, they knocked out, or the first team they knocked out was the New Brood, Matt and Jeff, who had just aligned with Gangrel at this period in time. One of the few pay-per-views they were in an alliance with Gangrel still. Up next, they defeated Midian, or however you pronounce it, I believe it's Midian, taking on, or also with Viscera, defeating that duo. After them, they took on Droz and Prince Albert, who they also defeated before losing to the Acolytes. And the Acolytes the Acolytes would beat the Holly Cousins, Hardcore Holly and Crash Holly, to become the number one contenders. So non-stop, the teams were coming in like crazy. As soon as one team was eliminated, the next team was literally right there. The action would begin right there. There was no downtime. Like I said, kind of the common theme throughout the Attitude Era. No rest holds, no taking it slow. It was action-packed, baby. This was no different. Not to say it was a great match. I loved how Edge and Christian were made to look like such a strong team, even in defeat, taking out not one, not two, but three teams. Very, not formulaic whatsoever for a tag team turmoil match. Sometimes we would have one team leaves, and now the other team, the new team, defeats the old team, and whatever. It goes back and forth. One team survives through two teams, and that's it. This team, Edge and Christian, survived through three teams before finally losing to the Acolytes. So they were made to look great here, kind of cementing their split from Gangrel, looking great, establishing themselves as a legitimate, credible duo in the tag team division. So, not to say it was a great match, like I said before, but it was entertaining. It was non-stop, action-packed, and in the end, the Acolytes become your new number one contenders, serving as a nice little teaser, I guess, or the next night's episode of Raw, where they would finally cash in their tag team title shot. That's where they would get their title match against the champions after this show. Also up next, we had Al Snow versus the Big Boss Man for the Hardcore Championship. Your typical hardcore-like brawl in the Attitude Era. We had them go all the way outside. They were battling throughout the backstage, the arena. They went across the street, which was pretty entertaining. It was only a 7-minute match. They went through a bar, like I said, across the street, so that was pretty cool. I always enjoyed the 24/7 rule. I thought they could have done a lot more with it in its final years, but, at its peak, in 1999 and 2000, 01, it was a lot of fun to watch, especially where they would go and who would get involved and stuff like that. I think, who was the guy? It was Road Dogg. Road Dogg left commentary, or even before this, we had a segment with Road Dogg and Jericho, who made his SummerSlam, or just his pay-per-view debut, after he had debuted only a couple weeks before this. He came out, interrupted Road Dogg, and Road Dogg kind of owned him on the mic, which was weird. I mean, it wasn't a bad segment. It just kind of felt like a step down for Jericho after he interrupted Rock a couple weeks before that. But anyway, I think they would start a feud going into the first episode of SmackDown if it didn't air before this. But regardless, though, going back to what I was saying before, with this match, Road Dogg, because he was still out there from the segment that took place before this one, he was out on commentary with Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, and he left commentary to commentate on the match as it went all the way outside and to the other side, or across the street from the arena. And I felt like, it seemed like, I don't think was this before the 24/7 rule? I want to say, well, I'm not exactly sure, but anyway, he went across the street with them and followed them. And I figured, okay, he's going to turn on one of them. He's going to get his title shot right now, or he's going to get involved. And he didn't. He just commentated the entire time. It was kind of bizarre, but it was a fun match for what it was. Nothing, overly amazing, but for a typical hardcore brawl, it was pretty fun. So after that, for the Women's Championship, Ivory defending the title against Tori. I honestly don't remember much about this match at all. I'm sure it wasn't terrible, but I'm also sure it was nothing. It was nothing spectacular. The match lasted all of 4 minutes. Ivory still the women's champion. Moving right along, Ken Shamrock versus Steve Blackman in a Lion's Den weapons match. And I figured this match would be a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Considering, I thought it was going to be a lot better than originally anticipated, because you have two guys that are have very two similar in-ring styles. Ken Shamrock being a former UFC fighter, Steve Blackman being a mixed martial arts artist, mixed martial arts expert. So I figured they would mesh well. They would have good chemistry in this contest. And it's not that the chemistry was off, just the Lion's Den, although it worked well to an extent with the Owen Hart versus Ken Shamrock match the year before, which was, like I said in that review, it was interesting. It was something different. It was something we hadn't seen before. This, although you would think it would benefit the styles more, it would kind of play more into their respective styles, I think it worked against them. The weapons aspect of it made no sense. Ken Shamrock won in very anticlimactic fashion. I think he took a Singapore cane, then he left the octagon, or whatever the hell it was called, the Lion's Den, the structure, and that was it. It wasn't your all-out brawl that you would expect it to be. Just kind of very lackluster. It wasn't a terrible match, but it was not. It left a lot to be desired, especially the finish. So up next, though, the best match up to this point on the show, the Greenwich Street Fight with the Lover or Leave Her match. The stipulation attached to it, where I believe Stephanie McMahon, not custody of her, as Tony Chimmel said at SummerSlam 2005, I think it was, or I think it was TLC 2010, where he said you had to gain custody of the World Heavyweight Championship. The winner didn't get custody of Stephanie, but I believe if Test lost, he would not be able to date her anymore or whatever, and if he won, he would. And he did win here, and Stephanie came out, a great reaction. She came out all happy. They showed a slow motion of her running down back to the ring, all ecstatic. That's Test won. But the match was very entertaining. We had a lot of interference, and warranted interference, because this was a no disqualification, as I mentioned, street fight from the Mean Street Posse. That was kind of fun, I guess, and Test had to battle back against the odds, and in the end he would, defeating Shane McMahon and winning the match and gaining, I guess, being able to date Stephanie or whatever the exact stipulation was, but they were able to embrace each other after the contest. But very entertaining match. Very, very much enjoyed this. I thought it was a lot better than I thought it would be, kind of an exact opposite of the previous matchup. I was never a huge Test fan from an in-ring standpoint. Watching his old matches, I was never really enthralled with his in-ring ability. He was impressive, but he wasn't terrific, And then Shane McMahon has always been great. Every single match I watch of his, whether it be King of the Ring from it was 2000, I think it was, and then his matches at SummerSlam in the past, the guy's a freaking nut. This was a very entertaining match, though. For the WWF Tag Team titles, up next, we had the Unholy Alliance defending the titles against the team of X-Pac, or Kane rather. X-Pac and Kane were defending the titles against the Unholy Alliance, The Undertaker and The Big Show. Decent match. I mean, it wasn't bad or anything like that. It was kind of your standard tag team match with a lot of shenanigans mixed in. And that was about it. I mean, there's really nothing I could say about it. X-Pac and Kane lost the belts, and they were kind of teasing tension to their eventual split. The Unholy Alliance would emerge victorious as the new WWF Tag Team titles, so a cool little moment there with them winning the belts, but the match itself was nothing special, kind of going along, and I've said it like a million times already in this review, but it really wasn't anything that stood out in my mind as being too great. I thought it was a good match, nothing over the limit, nothing overly amazing, but for what it was, they served a purpose. It was a solid match, okay, didn't really enjoy it too much, but the Unholy Alliance, your new tag team champions coming out of this bout. In the second to last match, we had a Kiss My Ass match with The Rock taking on Billy Gunn. A Kiss My Ass match, very similar to Sheamus and Dolph Ziggler just recently at Extreme Rules. What a stupid stipulation. I'm sure they had a story to go behind it. Billy Gunn came out and was some fat lady, and he was trying to have Rock kiss her ass or something after he said he was going to win. It was all this weird stuff. The match was entertaining while it lasted because it involved The Rock and Billy Gunn as Mr. Ass was just stupid. As Billy Gunn, he was, as a single star, he just didn't click for me. But the whole fat lady thing, it was funny, I guess, to an extent, but typical Attitude Era stuff, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I wasn't surprised while watching it. And they made the most of the stupid stipulation. It was just very, very unnecessary. And the fact they brought it back was even worse. But, yeah, they made the most of it. Rock goes over in the end and forces Billy Gunn to kiss. I don't think he kissed his ass. I don't remember exactly, but he did at one point force him to kiss the ass of that fat woman that Billy Gunn brought down to the ring, so his plan backfired. So The Rock, your victor in this contest. And then we get to the main event, a triple threat match for the WWF Championship with Jesse Ventura, as the special guest referee. So this would be the second time that Ventura would serve as the special guest referee at SummerSlam, after being the referee for the inaugural main event at SummerSlam 1988 between Ultimate Warrior and no, it was Hulk Hogan and I'm thinking of SummerSlam 1989. SummerSlam 88 was Hogan and Savage versus, I forgot the two heels, but I know it was Hogan and Savage. I know it was Hogan and Savage in the main event of the first ever SummerSlam. But it was a good match. I'm surprised, it got more time than any other match in the card. And they made the most of the 16 minutes that they were allotted, but it wasn't the great match I thought it would be. Just kind of a lot of, not even sloppy spots. I mean, there were a couple of botch spots here and there, but it just never felt their chemistry never gelled with each other. All three guys, Mankind, Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was the champion going into this contest, and Triple H, never really felt like they had their in-ring chemistry gel at any point. It was just kind of big move after big move. And they had some suspenseful near falls at various points. But for the most part, though, it just never clicked with me. I thought it was a good match. The ending result was bizarre. Mankind winning the belt, which was cool. His third and final WWF Championship. But it was the very next night that he would drop the belt right back, or not to Stone Cold, but he would drop the belt to Triple H. So why not just have Triple H win the belt on this show? So that's why I thought it was kind of a weird ending. Didn't benefit Mick Foley any, or Mankind rather, because he didn't hold on to the title for very long. The match was probably the second best match on the show, but like I said, that's not saying much because none of these other matches were, great at all. They were good, or they were entertaining. They weren't good. They weren't, fantastic though. But your typical triple threat match with all three guys just kind of taking turns, and Mankind in the end, I think he pinned Stone Cold to win the title, and had a pretty cool celebration. Not nearly as big as when he first won the championship in December, or rather January of that year, but still a cool moment for him. Although it would not last long, and Triple H would take out the referee and he would punch Sergeant Slaughter after the matchup, who kind of went berserk. But I never understood why they didn't give him the belt on this show. I'm sure there's some reason for it that I just don't know about, that either I heard about and I forgot, or I have no idea. But it just kind of seemed like a very weird way of having the title change hands. I know it was 1999 and the title changed hands like every other month, but it was still a very weird way of having the title change hands if Mankind was only going to hold on to it for a month. And you didn't even have to pin Stone Cold. Mankind could have pinned Triple H, or Triple H could have pinned Mankind, and Stone Cold didn't have to be involved in the deciding fall. So there were a couple ways that could have gone around it, or could have gone about it, and they didn't. So that was kind of left me scratching my head by the end of this pay-per-view. But the pay-per-view on the whole, though, it was a decent show. I'm not going to say it was good or great, because a lot of these matches, they just didn't resonate with me. I thought it was decent for what it was. The only two matches that I really, really enjoyed, I thought, were Test and Shane, which I thought was the best match of the night. The main event was good, not as good as it could have been. And the hardcore title match between Al Snow and Big Boss, but everything else is kind of, there were 9 matches on the card. All the other matches kind of felt random, or they were thrown together at the last minute. Whether it was, a lot of interference in the opener, and then the number one contenders tag team turmoil match was just kind of nonstop, but it didn't really have enough time to settle in. The women's title match was forgettable. Shamrock and Blackman was disappointing. The tag team title match was solid, if not, albeit unspectacular. And the Rock and Billy Gunn was silly. I mean, it was fun, but it was silly and stupid for the most part, especially for a guy like The Rock, who was WWF champion earlier on that year. So, on the whole, I would not recommend you go out of your way to watch this pay-per-view unless you were a fan at that time and you want to relive it. The only real match from this show I would suggest you go out of your way to watch was the honestly enough, the Greenwich Street Fight, which I thought was personally my favorite match on the show, a highlight for me, watching this pay-per-view on the WWE Network. Everything else was okay, but it never really felt like, none of the matches other than the main event and the tag team turmoil match, they got 17 minutes, but that's because they had 5 tag teams involved, or 6 tag teams rather. They should have given these matches more time to digest. They really didn't. They just had non-stop matches. I mean, a lot of these matches were only maybe 10 minutes long. They weren't really, not even the main event exceeded 20 minutes or came closer. There was 16 minutes. But still, a pay-per-view that I would skip over, and hopefully SummerSlam 2000, when I watch that over in a couple days, will be better than this event. So speaking of which, I will be back on Saturday with my full review of SummerSlam 2000. But in the meantime, in a between time, you can find me on Twitter and follow me there at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook. Give the page an old thumbs up at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. And also make sure to visit the website for my full written reviews of Raw, SmackDown, Main Event Superstars, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, NXT, Lucha Underground, Battleground, and everything else in between at nexterawrestling.net. And if you missed any of those links, they're all down in the description box below. So anyway, have a great rest of your week, folks, and as I mentioned, I'll be back on Saturday with my full review of SummerSlam 2000 as seen on the network.